So, I thought the next thing I would address is I got a lot of questions from folks. I'm sure the other ones who are doing videos about this have gotten these questions too. How the heck do you chant 1,000 times? How do you get that done in a day? How long does it take? The first night, because I'd spent the day getting the shrine together and buying the little goodies that I put together, setting it up and just enjoying that, I hadn't chanted at all during the day. So I sat down at night to chant. And the way I had decided to do it was using my mala beads to chant 5 times for each bead and go twice around the mala, which took me probably just a hair over 1,000. So there I was all ready, had the candles lit, sat down, was all comfortable, and I started chanting. Well, one time through the mala, I was losing my voice. And by the time I got 2 times through, I had no voice left. I actually prefer to chant out loud when I can. Now, chants are just as powerful when they're done silently, and I did limp through probably the last quarter of the second round of the mala beads, chanting under my breath. And then I got myself back into speaking for my big finale for the last part to get a few more out verbally. So I learned my lesson that very first day. Oh, and it took about an hour and 20 minutes. I learned my lesson that this is not something I'm going to save to nighttime, to settle in the quiet time after the sun goes down and start chanting. I didn't think I had an hour and a half a day, and I also didn't have the voice for it. So I decided right from the beginning that night, lesson learned. I chant for a little bit in the morning as I'm walking around the house and getting my breakfast and getting ready to get to work. I chant on the way to work. I chant on the way back from work. I also chant during the day at work quietly, so not out loud. And next video I think is probably going to be a little bit about what that is like when you take the chant and mingle that energy in through your day. This video is about making it fit, getting it into the day. So the next lesson I learned, taking on the 1,000 miracle chant for Kuan Yin, is remembering about devotion. Remembering that if something is important enough for you, you make the time for it. And it wasn't easy for a couple of days. I had to specifically set time aside. I was even angsting over, am I getting enough in? I'm not counting during the day. Oh my gosh, did I really hit 1,000? And it reminded me about setting time aside, devoting oneself to something, so that next couple of days where beauty was the theme that washed over me at first, the next theme that washed over me was devotion. If something is important enough to you, you will figure it out. You will make it happen. No excuses on I'm not going to do it today, I don't have the time, or I won't do 1,000 today, I don't have the time, I'll add more in tomorrow. That is not what this seemed to be about for me. This was about, Annie, if this matters, do it. Get it done. My husband would say, get her done, you know who he's a big fan of. So, lesson learned, Kuan Yin. The next week that followed, the first experience of beauty and excitement and looking forward settled into first feeling like, ooh, this is a little onerous. How am I going to get this done? To a reminder, when something is important, you make the time for it. Something else may have to give, and indeed things have been given over to this in the time I've been doing this. Helped me figure out that some things probably weren't things I should have been taking the time to do. Things like watching TV or playing computer games. Even the time I would take to be on Facebook, as I've newly come back to Facebook, I had to stop and think about how much of that is appropriate and how much of it should be given over to things that matter to me on another level. The spiritual level, indeed, and the personal level. So it was a next step of learning, is Kuan Yin brought to me, think about what you're doing in a day's time. If you love me as I love you, you will take time. You will devote time. The time is a sacrifice. It's an offering. And I learned a lot about structure and devotion as the next 3 or 4 days went by in that first week. I probably chant a lot more than 1,000, because who knows how much I chant in the day. And then, of course, without fail, at nighttime, I chant one round of the mala, 5 chants for each bead, which gets me somewhere around 500. So next lesson learned: devotion, sacrifice in a sense, but in the sense of offering of oneself. Lesson 2, Kuan Yin, I needed it and I greatly appreciate it. Namo Kuan Yin Pusa, Namo Kuan Yin. I wish you all mirth and reverence. Merry part.